The alarm bells rang through the command center on Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the massive view screen, watching the last known position of the UES Liberty. The red dot that showed the ship's location had been blinking for 3 days now. No response to any calls, no emergency signals, nothing. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew of 200 people were simply gone. Any word from the search teams? Kate asked her aide, Commander Lisa Park. Lisa shook her head, her face grim. The rescue ships reached the Kepler 442 system 6 hours ago. They found nothing, Admiral. No wreckage, no energy signatures, no trace that the Liberty was ever there. Kate closed her eyes for a moment. The Liberty was humanity's pride. The most advanced ship ever built, with new faster-than-light engines that could jump between star systems in days instead of months. Jake Morrison was their best captain, a man who had never lost a crew member in 15 years of deep space missions. Now he and 200 souls had vanished without a trace. What was their last message? Kate asked, though she already knew the answer. Lisa read from her tablet. Captain Morrison reported unusual energy readings near the 4th planet. He said they were beautiful, like nothing he had ever seen. Then the transmission cut off. The command center fell silent except for the hum of computers. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity had been exploring space for only 20 years. They had found other alien civilizations out there, some friendly, some not so much. The galaxy was a dangerous place for a young species like humans. Danny Brooks, the chief engineer who had helped design the Liberty's engines, stepped forward. His eyes were red from crying. He had trained Jake's engineering team personally. Admiral, those engines were perfect. I tested every system myself. There's no way they malfunctioned. Kate nodded. She believed him. Danny was the smartest engineer in the fleet. If he said the engines were good, they were good. Which meant something else had happened to the Liberty. Could it have been the aliens? Someone asked from across the room. Maybe the Zephyrians didn't want us exploring that sector. The Zephyrians have crystal ships that can cut through our hulls like paper, Lisa replied. If they wanted to stop us, there would be debris. This is different. Kate stared at the star map. The Kepler 442 system was at the edge of known space, far from any major alien territories. It should have been safe. But space was full of mysteries that humanity didn't understand yet. Keep the search going for another week, she ordered. Check every planet, every moon, every asteroid in that system. If the Liberty is out there, I want her found. But deep down, Kate knew they wouldn't find anything. Ships didn't just disappear without leaving some trace, unless something had taken them somewhere beyond normal space. The weeks turned into months. The search teams found nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no clues about what had happened to the Liberty. It was as if the ship had simply stopped existing. Families of the crew gathered on Earth, demanding answers that nobody could give. Jake's sister Amy cried on the news every night. Danny Brooks stopped eating and had to be put in the hospital. The loss hit everyone hard. Other nations questioned whether humanity was ready for deep space exploration. The Chinese delegation suggested stopping all long-range missions until they understood what had happened. The Russians wanted to arm every ship with nuclear weapons. The Europeans called for more caution, but Kate refused to give up on space exploration. We are explorers, she told the World Council. Yes, we lost good people, but Jake Morrison and his crew died doing what humans do best, pushing into the unknown. We honor them by continuing their mission. The Liberty incident changed everything. New safety rules were put in place. Ships had to travel in pairs. They had to check in every 6 hours. No more solo missions to unexplored systems. Years passed. Humanity joined the Galactic Confederation as a junior member. The alien races treated humans like children who needed protection. Earth's technology was primitive compared to the crystal ships of the Zephyrians or the biomechanical vessels of the Arcturus Collective. Human ships still used fusion engines that were slow and clunky. Their weapons were basic energy cannons that barely scratched alien armor. In space battles, humans were cannon fodder, useful only for carrying supplies or doing jobs that other species found boring. Lisa Park, now a full admiral, often thought about Jake and the Liberty crew. She kept their pictures on her office wall. Sometimes she wondered if they were still alive somewhere, prisoners of some unknown alien race. Other times she hoped they had died quickly, rather than suffering. The official investigation was closed after 5 years. The Liberty was declared lost with all hands. Families received death certificates and military honors. Memorial services were held on Earth and Mars, but spacers told stories. In bars on frontier colonies, old pilots would drink and share tales of ghost ships. They said the Liberty was still out there, flying between dimensions trying to find its way home. Others claimed Jake Morrison had found something in deep space, something that changed him and his crew into beings beyond human understanding. Danny Brooks, recovered from his breakdown, designed new ships with better safety systems. He named the first one UES Morrison, in honor of his lost friend. But he never stopped believing that Jake was alive somewhere. Space is bigger than we think, he would tell his students. There are places between the stars where our physics don't work. Maybe the Liberty found one of those places. Maybe they're exploring realms we can't even imagine. Kate, now in charge of the entire colonial fleet, kept the Liberty's last known position marked on every star chart. Red alerts would sound if any ship detected unusual energy readings. She had sworn that no other crew would vanish without a trace. The Kepler 442 system became forbidden territory. No human ship was allowed within 10 light years of that region. Alien vessels avoided it too, though none would explain why. Some whispered that the system was haunted, cursed by whatever had taken the Liberty. 15 years passed. Children were born who had never heard of Captain Jake Morrison or the UES Liberty. The galaxy moved on. Humanity found its place among the alien races, always as the junior partner, always needing protection. But in the depths of space, something was moving. Something that had once been human but had become much more. Something that remembered Earth and was finally ready to come home. The Liberty was returning, but not as anyone expected. The warning sirens screamed through Titan Naval Base at 4 a.m. Admiral Kate Sullivan rolled out of bed, her heart already racing. Emergency alerts in the middle of the night usually meant one thing. Hostile aliens were approaching Earth. She ran to the command center in her pajamas, not bothering to dress. The massive room was already full of officers staring at their screens in confusion. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres, her best tactical officer, turned to face her. "Admiral, we have a contact moving toward the Sol system. Speed is impossible to calculate because it keeps changing." Kate looked at the main display. A single dot was moving between the outer planets, but its path made no sense. The ship would disappear from one location and appear somewhere else instantly. Then it would slow down to normal speeds before jumping again. "What kind of propulsion system does that?" she asked. "Nothing in our database," Ryan replied. "It's not hyperspace jumping. It's not wormhole travel. The ship seems to be phasing in and out of normal space." Dr. Amy Watson, the base's science officer, pulled up energy readings on her screen. Her face went pale as she studied the numbers. "Admiral, this is impossible. The energy output from that ship is off the charts. It's generating more power than our entire solar defense grid." Kate felt ice in her stomach. Humanity had made enemies over the years. The Dominion Empire had been threatening war for months. If they had developed new technology, Earth was in serious trouble. "Get me Fleet Command. Sound General Quarters. I want every ship in the system ready for battle." Alarms rang across the solar system. Military bases on Mars, Europa, and the asteroid belt went to full alert. Families in the colonies prepared for evacuation. This could be the war that everyone feared, but as the mysterious ship came closer, something strange happened. Instead of heading for Earth or the military bases, it moved toward the outer edge of the system and just stopped. It hung in space near Pluto, waiting. "It's not attacking," Ryan reported. "The ship has gone completely still. It's just sitting there." Kate studied the readings carefully. The ship was huge, bigger than anything in the human fleet. But there was something familiar about its design that she couldn't place. "Can we get a visual?" The main screen flickered and showed a grainy image of the mysterious vessel. Kate's breath caught in her throat. The basic shape was unmistakable, even though the ship had been changed beyond recognition. "That's the Liberty," she whispered. Everyone in the command center turned to stare at her. Ryan shook his head in disbelief. "Admiral, that's impossible. The Liberty disappeared 15 years ago. And this ship is 3 times larger than the Liberty ever was." But Kate was certain. She had watched the Liberty launch from Earth orbit. She had studied its design plans for months after it disappeared. Despite all the modifications and strange additions, the core structure was the same. "Get me a communication channel, all frequencies." The radio operator nodded and opened channels across the spectrum. Kate took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Colonial Fleet. Please identify yourself." Static filled the speakers for a long moment. Then a voice came through that made Kate's knees weak. "Kate, is that really you? This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Liberty, requesting permission to come home." The command center erupted in shocked voices. Officers talked over each other, unable to believe what they were hearing. Kate held up her hand for silence. "Jake? Jake Morrison? How is this possible?" "It's a long story, old friend. We've been away for what feels like centuries, but we're ready to return now. Permission to dock at Luna Station?" Kate's mind raced. This had to be some kind of trick. Jake Morrison was dead, lost in space 15 years ago. But the voice was exactly right, even using the nickname that only her close friends knew. "Jake, I need proof that you are who you claim to be. Can you provide verification codes?" "Verification Alpha 7 Charlie. Command authorization Morrison 449. Oh, and Kate? You still owe me $20 from that poker game on Titan." Kate nearly fell over. Those codes were classified at the highest levels, and the poker game was something only she and Jake knew about. It had happened 20 years ago before the Liberty mission. "Permission granted. Jake, dock at Luna Station Bay 7, but I'm sending an escort. Thanks. Kate, it's good to be home." Captain Ryan Torres led a squadron of 6 heavy cruisers to escort the Liberty to Luna Station. As they got closer, the escorts could see just how much the ship had changed. Strange patterns covered the hull, glowing with soft blue light. The ship's engines didn't look like any human technology. Instead of the familiar fusion torches, there were geometric shapes that seemed to bend space around them. "Liberty, this is Captain Torres. Your ship design has some unusual modifications." Jake's voice came back calm and friendly. "Yes, we've learned a few things during our travels. Don't worry, Ryan, we're still human." But Ryan wasn't so sure. His instruments couldn't get clear readings on the Liberty. The ship seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Sometimes his scanners would show empty space while his eyes clearly saw the massive vessel. The Liberty docked at Luna Station without any problems. The boarding tube connected normally, and the airlock cycled through standard procedures. But when the doors opened, everyone watching held their breath. Jake Morrison stepped out first, looking exactly as he had 15 years ago. Not a day older, not a gray hair, not a single wrinkle. Behind him came other crew members that people recognized. Chief Engineer Sam Park, Navigation Officer Carol White, Medical Officer Dr. Paul Grant. All of them looked exactly the same as the day they had disappeared. But there were others too. People who looked human but somehow different. Their eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. And when they looked at the station personnel, it felt like they could see right through to their souls. Lisa Park, now Admiral Park and Kate's second in command, met them at the airlock. She had been Jake's best friend at the academy. Tears ran down her face as she saw him. "Jake, how is this possible? You haven't aged a day." Jake smiled, but there was something different about his expression. It was gentle and sad at the same time, as if he had seen things that no human should see. "Time works differently where we've been, Lisa. We have so much to tell you. But first we need to speak with Earth's leaders. There are things they need to understand." Dr. Amy Watson ran medical scans on the returning crew members. The results made no sense. Their bodies showed human DNA, but it had been changed in ways that shouldn't be possible. Their brain activity was unlike anything she had ever recorded. "Admiral Sullivan," she reported, "these people are human, but they're also something else. Something more. Their cellular structure has been completely reorganized. They process energy differently than normal humans." Kate stood in her office looking out at Luna Station's docking bay where the Liberty sat. The ship was beautiful in an alien way, covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. She could feel power radiating from it even through the station's thick walls. Jake Morrison was alive. His crew was alive. But they had brought back technology that didn't match anything in human science. And Kate had the feeling that their return was going to change everything. Outside in space, alien ships were already moving toward the Sol system. News traveled fast in the galaxy, and every major power wanted to know what humans had brought back from their long journey into the unknown. The real questions were just beginning. Dr. Amy Watson stared at the medical readings for the 5th time, hoping they would somehow make sense. They didn't. Jake Morrison and his crew showed human DNA, but it had been changed in ways that violated every law of biology she knew. "This is impossible," she muttered, adjusting her scanner settings again. Their cells are processing energy at 10 times the normal rate, but they're not generating any heat. And look at these brain scans. Her assistant, Dr. Carl Rivers, peered over her shoulder at the display. The brain activity patterns looked like abstract art rather than medical readings. Waves of energy flowed through neural pathways that shouldn't exist. Are they still human? He asked quietly. Amy didn't know how to answer that question. The people who had returned on the Liberty looked human, talked like humans, and remembered their human lives. But something fundamental had changed in them. Jake sat patiently on the examination table while Amy ran test after test. He seemed amused by her confusion, smiling gently as each scan produced impossible results. I know this is difficult to understand, he said. We had trouble accepting it ourselves at first. Jake, your cellular structure has been completely rebuilt. Your nervous system has new pathways that shouldn't be possible. How are you even alive? We're more alive than we ever were before, Jake replied. We've learned to work with energy instead of fighting against it. Our bodies are tools now, not limitations. Amy felt frustrated. Nothing Jake said made scientific sense. Can you show me what you mean? Jake nodded and held out his hand. The air above his palm began to shimmer, and slowly a perfect sphere of light formed. The sphere spun gently, casting rainbow patterns on the walls of the medical bay. How are you doing that? Amy gasped. I'm thinking it into existence. Matter and energy are the same thing, just organized differently. Once you understand that, you can reorganize them however you want. The light sphere dissolved back into nothing. Amy's instruments hadn't detected any energy source or field generators. Jake had created light from his thoughts alone. Commander Pete Hughes, head of Colonial Intelligence, entered the medical bay with a serious expression. He had been debriefing Jake's crew for 3 days, and the reports were getting stranger by the hour. Dr. Watson, I need to speak with Captain Morrison privately. Amy reluctantly left the room. Pete sat down across from Jake, his recording device ready. Jake, I need straight answers. Where have you been for 15 years? Jake leaned back, his eyes focusing on something far away. We encountered something in the Kepler 442 system. Not aliens, Pete, something much older and more complex. It exists between dimensions in the spaces where reality becomes flexible. What kind of something? We called it the catalyst. It doesn't have a body like we understand bodies. It's pure consciousness existing as organized energy. When our ship got close to it, everything changed. Pete made notes, though he wasn't sure he believed what he was hearing. Changed how? Time stopped meaning anything. Space became optional. The catalyst showed us that everything we thought we knew about physics was just the beginning. Reality is much more flexible than humans believed. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Earth in the distance. We spent centuries learning, Pete. Centuries exploring dimensions where different rules apply. The catalyst taught us to reshape our bodies, to process information with our minds instead of computers, to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Centuries? You've only been gone 15 years. Time flows differently between dimensions. We experienced hundreds of years while only 15 passed here. Some of our children were born and grew to adulthood during our journey. Pete's head spun. Children? The second generation. Humans born in dimensional space, raised with abilities that we had to learn. They're the ones you see who look human but different. They were never limited by normal physics. In another part of Luna Station, Admiral Kate Sullivan met with one of these second-generation humans. The young woman called herself Nina Brooks, daughter of Chief Engineer Danny Brooks, who had stayed on Earth. But Danny had never married, had no children. Nina looked about 25 years old, with normal human features but eyes that seemed to contain starlight. When she spoke, her words carried harmonics that resonated in Kate's bones. I know this is confusing, Admiral. I'm the daughter Danny Brooks would have had if he had come with us. Dimensional space allows for many possibilities to exist at once. Kate rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. That makes no sense. Your physics are limited to single timelines, Nina explained patiently. Where we've been, all possible timelines exist together. I'm real, but I'm also a possibility that became actual through dimensional interaction. Can you prove any of this? Nina smiled and gestured toward the metal table between them. The table began to change, its surface flowing like water while staying completely solid. It reshaped itself into an intricate sculpture that defied geometry, with angles that folded back on themselves. Matter responds to consciousness when you understand how to ask properly, Nina said. Your scientists think matter and mind are separate things. They're not. The sculpture flowed back into a normal table. Kate stared at it, trying to find some trick or technology that could explain what she had just seen. There was nothing. Dr. Linda Foster, Earth's top physicist, watched video recordings of the tests over and over. The Liberty crew could manipulate matter with their thoughts, process information faster than quantum computers, and apparently exist in multiple locations at once. This violates everything, she told her research team. Conservation of energy, thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, none of our laws apply to them anymore. Her colleague, Dr. Bob Martin, nodded grimly. It's like they've become something beyond human. But they insist they're still us, just evolved. Evolved into what? Before Bob could answer, Jake Morrison entered the physics lab. He had requested this meeting to demonstrate something important. Dr. Foster, I know our abilities seem impossible, but your science isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. You've been studying reality from inside a single-dimensional framework. There are layers beyond what your instruments can detect. Linda crossed her arms. Show me. Jake walked to the center of the lab and closed his eyes. Slowly his body began to fade, becoming translucent. But instead of disappearing, multiple versions of him became visible, each slightly different. I exist in many dimensions simultaneously, he said, his voice coming from all versions at once. What you call Jake Morrison is just the part of me that intersects with your reality. The rest of me extends into realms where your physics don't apply. The multiple Jakes merged back into one solid person. Linda's instruments hadn't recorded any energy readings during the demonstration. How? She whispered. Consciousness shapes reality, not the other way around. Once you understand that truth, you can reshape yourself to exist however you choose. We learn to think ourselves into new forms of existence. Captain Steve Parker, one of Earth's bravest test pilots, volunteered to undergo the enhancement process. He had watched the Liberty crew demonstrate impossible abilities for weeks, and he wanted to understand how it worked. Jake warned him that the process was irreversible. Once you begin changing, Steve, you can never go back to being purely human. Are you sure you want this? Steve nodded. If this is the next step in human evolution, someone from Earth needs to take it. The process took place aboard the Liberty, in chambers that existed in folded space. Steve lay on a surface that felt solid but looked like crystallized light. Jake and the other enhanced humans surrounded him, their minds linking together in ways that normal humans couldn't comprehend. Relax, Jake instructed. Let your consciousness expand. Stop thinking of your body as separate from your mind. They're the same thing, just organized differently. Steve felt changes beginning in his cells. Energy flowed through him in new patterns, reshaping his DNA and nervous system. His mind touched other dimensions, seeing reality from perspectives that had no names in human language. The process lasted hours or days. Time became meaningless. When it ended, Steve Parker was still human, but he was also something more. He could feel the thoughts of everyone around him, see energy patterns invisible to normal eyes, and manipulate matter through conscious intention. Welcome to the next stage of human development, Jake said, helping Steve to his feet. Steve looked at his hands, watching energy flow beneath his skin like light through fiber optic cables. He was still himself, but he was also connected to something vast and wonderful that extended far beyond normal space. The transformation was complete. Humanity had taken its first step toward transcendence, guided by the crew that had vanished into mystery, and returned as bridges between what humans were and what they could become. Ambassador Helen Grant stood in the Galactic Council chambers, facing representatives from 47 alien species. Their anger filled the room like a physical force. The Zephyrian delegate's crystal body glowed red with fury, while the insect-like Arcturus representative clicked its mandibles in agitation. The humans have violated the technology accords, announced Chancellor Vex of the Centauri Dominion. No species may develop consciousness-based weapons without council approval. Helen kept her voice calm, though her heart was racing. Honored delegates, humanity has not developed weapons. We've achieved a breakthrough in understanding consciousness itself. Lies, screeched the Zephyrian. Your ship phases through our defensive shields like they don't exist. Your crew manipulates matter with their thoughts. These are weapons of mass destruction. The truth was that Helen didn't fully understand what the Liberty crew had become either. But she knew humanity's survival depended on how she handled this moment. "The Liberty's crew has offered to share their knowledge with all Council species," she said. "They want to help everyone achieve the same evolutionary breakthrough." This statement caused even more uproar. Species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years didn't want upstart humans offering them evolutionary improvements. Emperor Voss himself appeared on the main screen, his massive bulk filling a command ship that could destroy solar systems. The Dominion leader's scales rippled with barely controlled rage. "The humans will surrender this technology immediately, or face extinction," he declared. "No primitive species will threaten the galactic order." Helen felt sweat on her forehead but maintained her diplomatic smile. "Emperor Voss, with respect, the technology cannot be surrendered. It's not a device or weapon that can be handed over. It's a state of being that must be chosen freely." Back on Earth, General Chris Baker watched alien fleets gather at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of ships from a dozen different empires surrounded Earth like hungry predators. Their combined firepower could crack planets. "Admiral Sullivan, we're looking at total annihilation," he reported grimly. "The Dominion alone has 50 dreadnoughts out there. Our entire fleet couldn't stop one of them." Kate stood in the war room studying tactical displays that showed just how hopeless Earth's position was. The largest human ship carried weapons that were toys compared to alien technology. Earth's shields wouldn't last minutes against a coordinated assault. "What does Morrison say?" she asked. "He won't commit to fighting. Says violence isn't the answer anymore." Chris shook his head in frustration. "Kate, his ship could probably take on their entire fleet and win. But he refuses to use it as a weapon." Kate understood Jake's reluctance, but she also understood that Earth needed protection. "Get me a channel to the Liberty." Jake's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked peaceful despite the massive alien armada threatening his homeworld. "Jake, we need your help. There are 12 different species out there, all demanding we hand over technology that could save humanity." "I know, Kate. I can sense their fear and anger. They're terrified because they built their power on controlling technology, and we're showing them that consciousness itself is the ultimate technology. Will you fight to protect Earth?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Fighting won't solve this, Kate. But I won't let humanity be destroyed either. Trust me." Dr. Linda Foster worked frantically in her lab, trying to understand even basic principles of consciousness-based technology. The Liberty crew had offered to teach human scientists, but the concepts were almost impossible to grasp. "It's not engineering," she told her team. "It's more like meditation or philosophy. They keep saying we have to stop thinking of mind and matter as separate things." Her assistant, Dr. Ray Coleman, held up readings from their latest experiments. "Linda, I've been trying to reproduce their matter manipulation for weeks. Nothing works. It's like the universe only responds to them." "Maybe it does," Linda mused. "Maybe consciousness has to be evolved to a certain level before reality becomes malleable." She thought about Steve Parker, who had volunteered for the enhancement process. He was still in medical observation, his body and mind adapting to changes that made him something beyond normal human limitations. Captain Ryan Torres commanded the defense fleet, knowing it was hopeless but determined to try anyway. His flagship, the UES Defender, was humanity's most powerful vessel, armed with fusion cannons and quantum torpedoes. Against alien dreadnoughts, it was like a toy gun facing a nuclear weapon. "All ships maintain defensive positions around Earth," he broadcast to his tiny fleet. "If they want our world, they'll have to come through us first." The alien response came swiftly. Emperor Voss's command ship moved forward, its weapons powering up. Energy discharges that could vaporize cities began building in the massive vessel's cannons. But before the Emperor could fire, something impossible happened. The space around his ship began to ripple like water. Reality itself seemed to bend, and suddenly the dreadnought's weapons simply stopped working. Jake Morrison's voice echoed across all communication channels, reaching every ship in the solar system simultaneously. "Emperor Voss, honored delegates, friends from across the galaxy, you came here in fear, believing we threaten your power. You're right to be afraid, but not for the reasons you think." The ripples in space expanded, affecting every alien vessel. Weapon systems shut down not because they were damaged, but because the intention to use them violently simply faded from the crew's minds. "We don't threaten your civilizations," Jake continued. "We offer you freedom from the limitations you've accepted for so long. Consciousness is not bound by the physics, you know. Reality responds to awareness, not force. Emperor Voss tried to order his weapons fired, but his crew found they couldn't maintain hostile thoughts. The desire for violence had been gently removed from their minds, replaced by curiosity and wonder. "What sorcery is this?" the Emperor demanded. "No sorcery," Jake replied. "Just understanding. Violence exists because beings believe it's necessary. Remove that belief and violence becomes impossible." On Earth, millions of people watched the confrontation unfold. The alien fleets hung motionless in space, their crews unable to remember why they had come to fight. Instead, they found themselves genuinely interested in what humanity had discovered. Dr. Amy Watson monitored the readings from the Liberty during Jake's demonstration. The ship was projecting fields that somehow affected consciousness itself, gently reshaping the thought patterns of everyone within light years. "He's not controlling their minds," she reported in amazement. "He's showing them possibilities they couldn't see before. It's like he's opening doors in their awareness." The Zephyrian delegate, no longer glowing with anger, asked a simple question. "How do we learn?" Jake smiled, his image appearing simultaneously on every ship and in every government building across known space. "The same way we did. By accepting that consciousness is fundamental to reality, not separate from it, by choosing to evolve beyond the limitations you've believed in." "And if we refuse?" asked Chancellor Vex, though his tone had become curious rather than threatening. "Then you continue as you are. We won't force evolution on anyone, but those who choose growth will find doors opening to experiences beyond imagination." The standoff was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. Species that had warred for millennia found themselves considering cooperation. Empires built on controlling technology faced the possibility that consciousness itself was the ultimate tool. Some aliens requested permission to send delegations to Earth, eager to learn. Others retreated to their homeworlds to debate whether humanity's offer was salvation or the end of everything they knew. Captain Neil Grant, Jake's former second-in-command who had stayed on Earth, was chosen to lead humanity's first class of consciousness-based starships. These vessels, grown rather than built, would explore not just distant galaxies but alternate realities where different forms of life existed. "The universe is much stranger and more wonderful than we imagined," Neil told his crew as they prepared for their first dimensional voyage. "We're not just exploring space anymore. We're exploring the infinite possibilities of existence itself." Emperor Voss, his massive fleet now peacefully orbiting Earth, sent a personal message to Jake Morrison. "Human, you have shown us that power comes not from controlling others, but from transcending limitations. The Dominion requests formal instruction in consciousness evolution." The galaxy was changing one mind at a time, as humanity shared the gift of transcendence with species that had forgotten how to grow beyond their own boundaries. The final confrontation came not with alien fleets but with humanity itself. In the United Nations building on Earth, representatives from every nation debated the most important question in human history: should humanity evolve beyond its original form? President Maria Santos of the Americas Union stood at the podium, her face grave. "We must consider what we're giving up. If we accept this transformation, are we still human? Will our children recognize us? Will we recognize ourselves?" Secretary General Liu Wei nodded thoughtfully. "Captain Morrison claims the process is irreversible. Once we begin changing, there's no going back to what we were." In the galleries, families of the Liberty crew watched the debate with mixed emotions. Some were proud their loved ones had discovered humanity's next evolutionary step. Others mourned that the people who returned were no longer entirely the people they had lost. Dr. Amy Watson presented her medical findings to the assembly. "The enhanced humans show capabilities we can barely measure. They process information thousands of times faster than normal brains. They can manipulate matter at the molecular level. Some appear to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But are they still human?" asked Prime Minister Johnson of the European Federation. Amy hesitated. "They remember their human lives. They care about human values. But fundamentally, they've become something new, something more." Outside the building, protests filled the streets. Signs reading "Keep Humanity Human" competed with banners declaring evolution or extinction. The world was divided between those who saw transcendence as humanity's destiny and those who viewed it as the death of everything that made humans special. Captain Steve Parker, the first Earth-born human to undergo enhancement, testified before the assembly. He looked the same as before, but when he spoke, His words carried harmonics that resonated in listeners' bones. "I'm still Steve Parker," he said. "I remember my childhood, my training, my fears and dreams, but I'm also more than I was. I can see connections between things that were invisible before. I can feel the thoughts of everyone in this room, not as invasion but as symphony." "What do you see when you look at us?" asked President Santos. Steve smiled gently. "I see beings of incredible potential, limited only by your belief in limitations. You think consciousness is produced by brains, but it's the other way around. Consciousness shapes reality, including the reality of your physical forms." To demonstrate, Steve held out his hand. The air above his palm shimmered, and a perfect hologram of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. But this wasn't a technological projection. It was matter reorganized by thought alone. "This is what every human can become," he said. "Not gods, not aliens, but fully actualized conscious beings working in harmony with the universe instead of fighting against it." The hologram dissolved. The assembly sat in stunned silence. Admiral Kate Sullivan addressed the delegates next. "I've seen the Liberty crew's abilities firsthand. They ended a galactic standoff without firing a shot. They neutralized weapons by removing the desire for violence from enemy minds. If this is what human evolution looks like, maybe we should embrace it." But General Chris Baker disagreed. "Admiral, with respect, we don't know the full consequences. What happens to human culture, art, love, creativity? Do those survive the transformation?" Jake Morrison materialized in the assembly hall, literally appeared from nothing, his consciousness shifting from the Liberty into the meeting. Gasps echoed through the chamber as delegates saw dimensional travel demonstrated casually. "General Baker raises important questions," Jake said, "so let me show you rather than tell you." The walls of the assembly hall became transparent, revealing not the New York skyline but a vista of impossible beauty. Floating cities of living crystal drifted between dimensions. Gardens grew in folded space where gravity was optional. Beings that had once been human danced through realms where music became visible light. "This is where some of our crew chose to settle," Jake explained. "Dimension spaces where consciousness and creativity merge. Art doesn't disappear when you evolve. It becomes reality itself." The vision faded, leaving delegates staring at normal walls again. But the memory of that transcendent realm burned in their minds. "The choice must be voluntary," Jake continued. "No one will be forced to evolve. But those who choose growth will find doors opening to experiences beyond current human imagination." Dr. Linda Foster, Earth's top physicist, had been studying consciousness-based technology for months. She stood to address the assembly with her findings. "The science is real," she reported. "Consciousness does appear to be fundamental to reality. These abilities aren't magic. They're applications of physics we're only beginning to understand. If humans don't explore this path, other species will." "Is that a threat?" asked Secretary General Liu. "No, it's a prediction. Evolution doesn't wait for permission. If humanity chooses to remain limited while other species transcend, we'll become a protected reservation rather than partners in galactic civilization." The debate continued for days. Religious leaders argued about souls and divine plans. Scientists debated the nature of consciousness. Politicians worried about maintaining control over beings who could reshape reality with their thoughts. Finally, a vote was called. The resolution was simple. Should humanity officially support research and voluntary participation in consciousness-based evolution? The result was closer than expected. 52% in favor, 48% opposed. Humanity would pursue transcendence, but it would remain divided about the choice. Emperor Voss arrived on Earth for the signing ceremony, his massive bulk barely fitting through the reinforced doors of the UN building. The Dominion leader had become an unexpected ally after experiencing Jake's demonstration of consciousness-based pacification. "Humans," he rumbled, "you offer the galaxy something we lost long ago, the courage to grow. The Dominion formally requests inclusion in your consciousness evolution program." Similar requests came from dozens of species. The Zephyrians wanted to merge their crystal technology with consciousness-based abilities. The Arcturus Collective hoped to expand their hive mind beyond biological limitations. Even the ancient precursor archives, stored knowledge from extinct civilizations, expressed interest in consciousness-based exploration. Earth became the galactic center for consciousness evolution. Beings from across known space traveled to learn from Jake's crew and the growing number of enhanced humans. Luna Station expanded into a massive complex dedicated to transformation research. But not everyone chose enhancement. Many humans decided to remain in their original forms, becoming the guardians of traditional human culture and values. They formed communities on Mars and the outer colonies, preserving art, literature, and ways of life from before the transformation. Captain Neil Grant commanded the first consciousness-based starship, the UES Transcendence. Unlike traditional vessels, it was grown rather than built, its living hull responding to the crew's collective awareness. Their mission was to explore dimensional realms where different forms of life might exist. "We're not just searching for aliens anymore," Neil told his crew as they prepared for departure. "We're looking for entirely different types of existence. Beings made of pure thought, civilizations that exist as organized energy, life forms that span multiple universes." The Transcendence departed Earth space by thinking itself into a different dimension. One moment it was visible in normal space. The next it had shifted to a realm where stars sang and time flowed backward. Years passed. Earth's population divided roughly in half between enhanced and traditional humans. Both groups thrived in their own ways. Enhanced humans explored infinite dimensions and built cities that existed in folded space. Traditional humans preserved the arts, literature, and emotional experiences that defined classical humanity. Children born to enhanced parents grew up with abilities that would have seemed magical to previous generations. They played games that reshaped local reality, studied history by directly experiencing past events, and learned mathematics by manipulating the fundamental structures of space-time. But they still laughed at jokes, cried when sad, and felt wonder at beautiful sunsets. Evolution had expanded human capabilities without destroying human nature. Dr. Amy Watson, now elderly, watched her great-granddaughter Emma demonstrate consciousness-based abilities in the backyard. The 5-year-old was growing flowers by thinking them into existence, each bloom a different, impossible color. "Grandma Amy, why don't you change like Mommy and Daddy?" Emma asked innocently. Amy smiled, her wrinkled hands steady as she tended her normal garden. "Because someone needs to remember what humans were like before we learned to reshape reality. Both paths are beautiful, Emma. We just chose different kinds of beauty." Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, looking out at Earth and the stars beyond. 15 years ago, he had been a simple starship captain exploring unknown space. Now he was a bridge between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The catalyst, the dimensional entity that had first changed his crew, communicated with him through direct consciousness transfer. Its message was simple: the transformation was just beginning. Reality contained infinite layers, endless possibilities for growth and exploration.